Ain't you sick of giving me your money?
Oh, it's... Oh. I know he didn't do it, baby.
Hold on a second. Whoa. Where you going?
No, I'm about to go make these drop-offs.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Black Currency Podcast. Our goal is to help educate people on financial literacy by talking with various people from relatable backgrounds. My name is Bradley D.L.O. Thomas. I'll be one of your co-hosts today. I'll pass the microphone.
Hey, it's Opal Elise. I'll be one of your co-hosts today, too.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Corey _Dub Whitmore. I'm happy to be here and to do this podcast, man. I'm geeked for this one.
Absolutely. We've been planning this for ages. So for us to get here today is truly amazing. I'm so happy to introduce our guest today. You know, I heard her name in various circles from various people because we're going to be talking about money management. And just let me introduce her first. You know, she's a professional financial consultant. She's an entrepreneur, financial wellness coach. She's a teacher. She's a AOD EC strategist. She'll probably tell you what that means a little bit later. I don't want to give all the beans away, but without further ado, she's got a company, the Melanin Project 2053, which is just amazing. I'm sure she's gonna talk to you about that. But without further ado, CEO, founder, Afra Smith.
Wow, y'all made me sound so big. Wow, thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here with y'all today to talk about such an important topic.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we can get right into it. I'm very curious about kind of what sparked your mind. What was the spark that made you want to get, to start educating people on financial literacy and, financial wellness and develop strategies behind that?
It was my journey. It was, through the process of trying to better myself and better my financial affairs. I didn't want anyone to go through the same struggles that I did. And I can talk about that from dealing with folks who would not help support me or just making so many mistakes along my journey. And I started to become so passionate about money. And I'm like, I would like to help other people not go through what I had to go through and show them a different path that we could have in our lives. So that was really the catalyst that got me to the place that I am today. And, being a financial wellness coach is just something that's been life-changing for me, from just my own journey, but also just being able to help people, impact and change their lives.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to dig in deep to the Melanin Project 2053. So why 2053? Like, what's the connection there for the people that may not understand what's going on?
So 2053 is the date that if current trends continue, the Black median wealth will hit zero. And so that statistic is very alarming. It was very scary for me. And so I often educate on this because it makes it real. Like, do you know that if you continue to do what you're doing and not understand the impact of it, this is what's going to happen to our community. And so I often educate on that. And on the flip side of that, I had to add the 2053 because someone else had the Melanin Project domain. So I had to 2053 on the back end of it.
So that was a requirement of the hustle there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
so,
cool.
I feel that sometimes by adding in some statistics, regardless of audience, it just kind of opens folks up, whether I'm in front of folks doing pitches or whether I'm just in front of, my people saying, hey, y'all, like, are you aware of this statistic and what's going to happen and what it means to not have wealth, or to not be wealthy, just trying to really explain it in terms that we can really understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the key too. So we're not going over everybody's heads. That's actually one of the goals. I'm so glad that you said that, because we created this platform really with that mission in mind of just making it plain for everybody so that no one feels left out, and everyone is, happy to ask a question, really, curious about trying to figure out how to get that financial wealth, because it's important. It's very important.
And we're all here to learn, and I'm already learning. It's the first 3 minutes. I'm like, oh man, really? I'm like, man. But that's like you said, that's why the platform is here. We're here to bring in people that can teach, and we're learning just like the audience is learning. And that's what's great about this. So yeah, I know you wanted to dig into a little bit to the habits, which when it comes to money is so important.
Sure. Yeah, that was a big question that I had, because I know you can't really change your life without changing your habits, and you obviously understand how to do that. So in terms of finance, just on the basic things, like what are the basic habits that you do every single day that kind of puts your mind in the right place to make these changes and to help people?
I definitely say that this is the number one thing that we have to switch on, because we've learned bad behaviors for a generation, right? And we actually add on some additional bad behaviors. Now, I share my story very openly about the fact that before I got to this place, to kind of make it real and to normalize it, I had to be open. And that is what aortic really is. It's my personal journey through becoming well. And so aortic is really 80% of what a person needs to know to master their budget. And it's kind of unlearning bad behaviors that we've, again, don't really recognize are bad. I was clubbing Thursday through Sunday. That was my lifestyle, right? I bought rounds for everybody. That was my lifestyle. I had brand new outfit. You name it, I had it. And even when I was broke, I was buying rounds for everybody as if I was just, living the life, because that's what everybody else was doing. And don't get me wrong, I lived my best life, but there were consequences for that behavior that you don't really realize that you're just following what everybody else is doing. And so if you want to live different and be different, then you have to start to really educate yourself on the importance of the things that you do every day and you don't do every day can really impact you. So I always talk about your triggers, and we all have them. And the reason why I call myself a financial wellness coach is because this is a wellness issue. Because anytime you will put your health, transportation, your food, your housing at risk so that you can be out in the community kicking it, that's a wellness issue. And so a lot of folks, question me about that term, but I do. I'm a financial wellness coach, because in order for me to get you to understand how to put the numbers in a spreadsheet, which is super simple, I have to first start with your mind, and to get you to understand you're going to make mistakes, you're going to get off track, but these are the consequences, and this is how you get back on track. These are the boundaries that you need to have with yourself. You know your lifestyle, you know how you're living, so you know how to make the necessary adjustments to make sure that you can be successful. So I think it's really understanding your triggers. And we have some bad triggers in our community. We have a lot of them that I can just talk over and over and over about. I was in Houston this past weekend, and I was overhearing a conversation with a gentleman and another patron, and the girl was like, "Your shoes ugly." And I looked down, he had on the Kanye West, those $400 shoes. And I could hear, "Where you pay for those? Those look like moon shoes." And he was so excited that he bought these $400 shoes. And in my mind, I'm like, man, I really want to talk to him. But you got to be mindful of the approach. And I was just listening to the conversation and thinking, like, this is our community. We're so immersed in vanity and material things that we are purchasing things that have no wealth. They're not going to double or triple. All they're doing is making us look cute. We trying to live up to the Joneses and trying to impress everybody. And by the time you get done with that one shoe that you've bought, it's now time to upgrade because the next Jordan came out. So I think it's definitely a behavioral change that we need to really implement.
So I got a question. So instead of the Yeezys, what should they be taking that money? Where should they be putting that money instead? Like what, you know what I'm saying? Like, because some people, I know what you're so on point with just saying we put these values in these things that don't go anywhere. So what, like, if the $400 was with you in the new mind frame, what would you do?
Okay, so I'm gonna break this down. So for everybody looking at this box right here, I'm gonna tell you that you want to be on the side that Bradley and I are on right now. That's the right side of the quadrant, and that means that you need to be investing in business, or you need to be owning something, or you need to be investing in real estate, have the ability to appreciate and have value. And to really understand that, you got to understand the difference between wealth and being wealthy and being rich. And I educate on this in my course because people have a mentality to say, if I only make more money. So what is the purpose of making more money if you can't manage the 30,000, the 40,000, or maybe even the $15 an hour that you're making? Making more money is not going to help you. And let's take, and again, I'm not trying to down my brothers in the NFL and the NBA, but majority of those people go broke. About 65% of NFL and NBA players go broke. And the reason for that is because if they don't invest in things that have value, they're rich, they have a lot of money. But again, we're not trained to have that mindset. Also, the same thing with people who hit lottery, for millions of dollars. 75% of people who hit the lottery within 3 to 5 years go broke because we don't know how to hold that money. So when I think about the idea of wealth and being wealthy, wealth is when you get your paycheck and you pay all your bills, what you have left is your wealth. So if you have $5 left after you've paid your bills, that's your wealth. So how do you take that money and figure out how to invest it in something that's going to make you a little bit more money? And although $5 seems like a very small amount, that money can multiply in such a short period of time if you're consistent with your actions. And so in really teaching people through budgeting process, I show them what they're doing with their money, and it's eye-opening because I can calculate out what you're doing for the year with that subscription that you have for Netflix, Hulu, Disney, all the other services, This is where your money's going. So you need all these subscriptions. It's called a cart sweep. It's a method that I take people through a cart sweep. Let's do a cart sweep because I want to show you where your wealth is going.
Okay.
So, the idea of wealthy then becomes, are you owning and running a business? You're on that right side. Are you investing in stocks? Are you investing in real estate? So these are the ways in which you can really start to I call it catch up. If you're already behind in your walk towards building generational wealth.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned the quadrant too. Was that from Robert Kiyosaki?
Cash flow quadrant. Mm-hmm.
Cash flow quadrant.
Great book. Yeah, great book.
We're gonna have to share that online.
You got your wages.
Yeah.
You're self-employed. Can't make a lot of money over there. And again, I'm not downing anybody. If you're gonna do that, then you just have to make sure that you're managing it. Because again, I'm still a wage earner as of today. But the difference is I'm making my money work for me instead of working for it. I use it as like an outlet or a channel to help me, invest in other things that I want to be doing. So, it's a mindset switch.
Man, there was a lot packed in there. Man, that was a lot of jewels.
Gems like
I know. I need to get the thing to have grins drop from the top. Maybe I can add that in.
We got a book name. We got a process. We got all kind of stuff.
But you've bridged kind of into my next question. So for those people that are listening or watching that say, oh man, I want to get to that point. I want to be possibly a business owner, or I want to invest in business, or I want to invest in stocks, or I want to make my money work for me. But how do I get there? Because you've said money management is the key and the foundation. So for the person that's out there that says, okay, I may not be able to hire you. I may not be able to hire somebody to come in and help me go through my books. Are there things that are available that somebody could use to help start that process of now identifying that, yes, I'm spending this much money on subscriptions. I'm overspending on going out to eat. Is there something that is available that people could go to or download or use to help them start that process?
Yeah. This is a really big one for me. And before I go into the detail about it, I want to just share that when you're on this journey, and this happened to me and it happens to a lot of folks, you're going to get a lot of people, because when I was going through the journey, I was trying to figure out why when I had a 500 credit score and no money, how I was going to start a business. I wasn't there yet, but I wanted the information, and I was treated very poorly. But what happened to me is I would not stop until I found the right person and the right resource to really connect me. I wouldn't stop being open about where I was, right? Because that's a part of aortic. You have to acknowledge that you have a problem and go and seek the help that you need. And in seeking that, sometimes people will try to take you down a few notches. And so I would say to folks that there is so much information available, whether you're reading a book, whether you're on a podcast, listening to a feed like we're on now, whether you're on YouTube, wherever you are in your financial walk, you can figure out the source to get you through where you are today. But don't stop. You're going to run into roadblocks, but it's like that. You have to have discipline. So, and what that means is, as soon as you hit a roadblock, are you going to give up? Because that's our lives. This is how we live as a community. There's always a roadblock that's coming in front of us, but I'm not going to fall. That's going to be fuel for me. I remember every single bank I walked in, because I did bank shopping. Right after I started to be well, I did bank shopping because I wanted to find out how they were going to treat me and whether or not I was going to refer people for services. Okay. I remember every single person that treated me like doo-doo. I remember their names, their faces, the organizations they work for, right here in Madison, right here in our hometown. I know what they look like, and I'll never forget that. But I just will say that there's so much information available. There are so many people that are willing to mentor you and help you, even if you don't have the money. You got to just seek it out and be relentless towards that. So I think a good start for most people, we have a fear in even looking at what it looks like. But how can you create a roadmap if you're not willing to look at it? That creates a lot of anxiety. And so in my process, what I did is I started to tell people I had a problem. That was hard for me because I was embarrassed. Like, nobody knew that I was living this lifestyle. Everybody thought I was rich. Like, look at Afra. She's doing a lot of stuff. It looked like I was rich. I was stressed. Yeah, anxiety. I was in the club every weekend, but I was stressed. Lights almost turned off. So, got to be careful putting $5 in gas in the car, hoping the fumes get you to Sunday. That was my situation.
Oh, that's real.
You got to just be open. A part of the process of being open, too, is how we build community. Because I took people along with me by saying, you know what, my credit score is 600. I'm trying to get some help. And I had a really close friend of mine said, you should call Sister Tracy. And I called her. And when I say that really started my journey, and I spent about 3 months with this amazing Black woman, and she showed me just the basic steps of budgeting. I was like, I can do this. But then I left her. And when I left her, I said, you know what? I'm leaving you not because you did anything wrong, but because I need to know if I can do this on my own. And then from there, I just read. I read. I studied. I just immersed myself, which is the E and AO, the education. Like, I studied everything related to money in order to figure out how to get myself there. I would lay my story out. I went into one place asking for money, and I said, I had a 600 credit score, and I have $80,000 in debt. I mean, I went down, and he just looked at me and said, you need Dave Ramsey. I was like, I already read that book. Trying to figure out how I can start.
Well, I already went there. I need to be giving you books, like.
So we'll be reading your book next. But Afra, I just love how you talked about, like, one of those pitfalls being anxiety, right? Because money is so, like, it's so emotional. It's tied to you. Like, you feel shame if you don't have it. You feel uncertainty if you don't know what to do with it. And you talked about Sister Tracy, who I know is another Black woman. How important do you think that trust is, and then that cultural understanding, to have someone who understands how our culture works and how we look at money? And then if you could talk too about just like, what are some of the pitfalls that, I mean, you talked about some of yours, but what have you seen with clients, and how have you kind of eased their mind and brought them along and helped them stay with it?
I think that cultural influence is so important, because there are things that I don't have to ask my clients. I just kind of know, right? Like, I understand what our community has to deal with. And, one of the things I did for many years, I spent a lot of time feeling sorry for myself. I mean, I need to be honest about that. I always felt like somebody owed me something. And being a Black woman in corporate America, it's hard. Yes. I went back, got that bachelor's degree, worked hard. They still wouldn't promote me. I went back and got a master's degree. They still wouldn't promote me. So you become very bitter and bothered by that. And so I think that that cultural aspect of having that understanding of, I get where you're coming from. You don't need to explain certain things to me. I don't need to justify to you why I have this situation. Like, look at the stats. It's the same thing that I educate on when I'm doing these pitches. Like, look at the stats. And they're always like, oh my God, like, these are the stats. This is where our community is. What are you going to do to help? And so I feel like having services where we can walk in and there are people that look like us is so warming. It's comfortable. It is ideal. And we need more of it. We can't continue to have folks who are in front of us that don't understand our nature, our circumstances, how to help us get through our situations. And I'll also add, have programs that are actually geared towards helping us get out of it versus programs that are geared towards maybe an audience who has a parent where they're going to inherit money or they're going to have the student loans paid off. You know, that's how I ended up in payday loan game. I had so many payday loans, I couldn't keep up. It was just so many. So I had to lean on that because my credit was so bad. There was no other way for me to get out of it. Nobody would help me at that point in time. And so once you get in it, you're stuck. So I think that is very important. It's very significant. And it's something that I'm really pushing for. One of the things that I'm trying to do with the Melanin Project is create a home ownership arm, because I'm not sure if you all are aware, but nationally, home ownership for Black people is around, I believe it's 45%. And in Madison, it's 10%. So Black people don't own homes here, regardless of income bracket now. So you can look at the income bracket. It's not even, you know, a favorable statistic, even as you go up in income. There's a reason for that, right? So let's figure out how we're going to even the playing field instead of figuring out how we can compete to do 30 to 40,000 above asking price. And so I think that cultural specific service it's got to be done in order for us to be successful. Now, I'll say this. I'm not dependent on anyone to help me get through my stuff. And I don't encourage anyone else to depend on anyone but themselves to get through, because I spent so much time doing that and it didn't come until I got upset and I got bothered. And I said, you know what? I don't need y'all. And that's the worst place for a person like me to be. And I encourage everybody to take that mentality, because that's going to fuel you. You'll never want to go back to that situation based on the fact that you know how people are going to treat you. And it's not going to change when you move around. So I always say that financial literacy changed my life because it was the tool that I used to say, I don't want to work here anymore. It feels great. Like, I'm leaving. Keep your bonus. Bye. I have enough money in the bank now where I feel so comfortable saying goodbye. And it has not always been that way. I hope I answered your question, Opal. That was
you
a long.
You did. I'm inspired by your freedom right there. Just being able to have the power to walk away.
That's real.
Man, that was so real. You hit me on a couple of nerves, especially with the payday loan store. I feel like that should just be illegal. It should, man. Going to that store, and it was embarrassing. I used to, it took me a while to pay mine off too, and you just felt like you're in this black hole, just like I'm putting like $200 on this, and the balance isn't going down.
300% interest. Like, what kind of loan is that? 300% interest? Like, come on now. The biggest funder of payday loans is Wells Fargo. I don't encourage anybody Black to get an account at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is notorious for doing a lot of stuff. I think they had to walk out of a whole bunch of Black people. Probably about a year or so ago. Yeah, they're consistently doing stuff to create inequities. Like, why are you financing this kind of situation? But I think that this is where that advocacy comes in, and where we really need to be pushing on our legislators to say, we don't want this in our communities. Like, we need to be speaking up about things like that. So.
True indeed. Speaking of funds and money and having cash in the bank to retire or walk away and having that freedom, is there a certain amount based upon how much a person is making that you would kind of suggest that they save up if they want to start thinking like, hey, I'm having to deal with this, institutional racism. I'm having to deal with this environment that isn't healthy for me. Is there a certain amount based upon how much they make that you would kind of recommend that they save up?
Yes. So when you are starting the budget process and you have a lot of debt, you're trying to pay that debt down, even if you're behind on bills, the first thing I always recommend is you put up $1,000. And the reason that you put that up before you do anything else is because that is your emergency fund.
Mhm.
If you try to
Okay.
pay down your bills first, then you're still consistently relying on your credit cards and payday loans. You're in the borrow
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
So save the $1,000 first. After you save that $1,000, then the next step you need to do is you need to put up 5% of every single check. I don't care what you have. So that
Mhm.
1,000 is sitting, you never touch it. You put it in an account that's out of sight, out of mind, so that you're not triggered to go in there. So if you bring home $1,000 every 2 weeks, and what you need to do is take that $1,000 and you multiply it by 0.05. If you put that in a calculator, that's $50. So $50 out of every check should be automatically put in that same account where that $1,000 is. And the reason why I stress this is because while you're paying down your debt, that's your wealth fund. That is how you're going to start investing in your business, real estate. So, and you don't think about that 3 years from now, and you're putting this money up, it's just sitting there compounding. And it's also making you feel secure, because if you lose a job, now you got 3 to 6 months of a cushion, or somebody gets sick and they can't work. Now you got 3 to 6 months of a cushion. And so everything else goes towards paying down debt. And so the idea is when you get to a point where all your debt is paid off, you're going to increase your savings and your investment amount. And so I always recommend that 10% of your take-home pay go into savings, and 15% of your take-home pay should be invested pre-tax. And then when you get raises, you invest the raise. You don't take the raise home with you. You invest the raise, or you save the raise. But, you know, even before you get to the $1,000, I'm doing that card sweep, going through cleaning up the budget to make sure that there are things that that are really going to prohibit you from working it down. And so when I set people up, I look at it from a perspective of debt. I show them how much debt they have, how long it's going to take them to pay off at the rate that they're going, versus how quickly they can pay it off if they follow the path that I'm showing. And usually that'll excite people. They can see a plan. But it's 5%. That's a great measure of being able to pay it down. And then once you hit that threshold of the $1,000 and you're putting up that $50, then you can start eating down the rest of the debt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love that, because that is doable. That right there is doable. Even if it's hard to get to that 1,000, that 5%, you broke that down with that $50. That's what I love about it. Because sometimes I listen to Susie Orman and all these folks, and they talk about, I'm like, well, that ain't happening.
Right.
You roll with the 5%. I love that.
And the one thing about the emergency fund is you got to make sure that when you take out of it, it's an emergency. It ain't, you know, to buy Pookie some shoes. That's not what that fund's for. You know, if the shoes ain't got no holes in the bottom, you don't use the emergency fund for that. You know, it's, you know, your tire has blown out or something like that, and you don't go use the credit card. You use the emergency fund. So if you have to spend $200 on a tire, you stop the budget process and you put the money back. Once you put the money back, then you go back to the cycle, right? And so it's a constant. But after you start seeing that money grow, like, it gives you so much confidence. And again, that ability to tell, you know, Karen at the job, I don't work here anymore. Like, I just, I can't.
Right.
So, you know, you just get to that place, and it doesn't take long. It's a patient game. You have to be patient. It's not an instant gratification. It's not overnight. Right. It's not quick. My process was not quick, but what I want to share with people is it's the journey. It's what you discover about yourself. It's what you discover about the people around you. And you realize, man, I should have been doing this a long time ago. And then you start to be in rooms with people that you never thought you'd be in front of. You still deal with imposter syndrome, right? Not feeling like you belong in a room with folks who have a lot of money. But you realize, like, there are a lot of great people out there that are willing to help you get to a place. And I just want to stress that. I'm joking a lot about people who have been very biased in nature, but there are a lot of people who have helped me along my journey and are actually helping me today to get to the next phase in my wealth building.
That's dope.
I have a question to follow up on that. And maybe you would have some suggestions. So I'm going to show my age here. I'm sorry. I'm going to show my age in this example. But when I was younger, and when I was in college, I would purposely, I didn't have a debit card. I would purposely leave money in the bank where I had to physically take the bus to go down there and take the money out so I wouldn't spend. Because, you know, you'll be out with your friends and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, oh, yeah, I got this. Oh, I got this. but I knew what I had in my wallet was it. And if I had to go get some more, I had to jump on that bus during business hours and go downtown and get it. Now, in this day and age, it is so easy to be able to transfer money, to say, hey, I'm going to set this money, as you were alluding to, I'm going to set this money aside in my savings, but then I can go on my phone now and be like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and move this, you know how my credit's set up, but you can transfer it now so easy. I know I've found myself taking some money and investing it or putting it in an IRA for me not to touch it and to almost, in essence, forget about it. What strategies would you give people that say, hey, I want to set things away, but I know myself and I'm not disciplined yet. And I know if it's sitting in my savings, I'm going to go on my app when I need it, slide it over while I'm at the club and spend it. What are some strategies you can give people that may help them possibly put it out of reach or create that discipline of not touching it?
This is great because this is recognizing your triggers. And this was me. Money burned a hole. I just was a swipe. I don't know how much money I had. I just was swiping. I deal with the consequences of the overdraft later.
Right.
But I think understanding your triggers are so important. So you make things as hard as possible on yourself, kind of like what you're setting up. So what I recommend to people is do not have your savings account at the same bank. If you are going to have your savings account or your IRA, your mutual fund at the same bank, disconnect it so that you cannot visually see it. Don't attach your debit card to it. Don't attach it to where you can see it. And automation. This is another thing I didn't touch on. You cannot build wealth if you do not have your bills automated. And what I mean by that, you should have stuff auto drafted out of your checking account. All your bills should be auto drafted. If you're not on auto draft, that is the first step I recommend to folks. Set your bills up on auto draft. This is one of the ways you can avoid being late on credit cards and getting double charged with your credit score dipping as well. But I would recommend out of sight, out of mind. You let that $50 go in every week in an account that you know is there. Go put it in California. I know people who open up banks in California. The other strategy that I used, because I was a swiper, is that at the very beginning, what I would do is, and I still do this sometime today, but I use the credit card strategy a bit more because of where I am right now, my wealth building phase. But I would take out my allowance in food. And I kid you not, I lived off of $200 every 2 weeks. That was my allowance, food, and my kicking money. And I didn't go above that. That was it. The only time I swiped was to get gas or some random expense, but I should have never swiped my card. So once that money was out, I can't hang out, y'all. Sorry. And that was it. And so that was a strategy I used for quite a while. So that allowed me to build up that savings account. It allowed me to train my brain. And it was kind of a stoppage point too. Like you open the wallet up, I got $60 and I'm supposed to hang out with Opal on Friday. We going to McDonald's. Like I'm not gonna have enough. So it's a stoppage point that makes you process and really think. And so there's a lot of different ways in which people can sort of create boundaries for themselves around how to retrain your brain to not want to spend. The other thing I would say is when you're triggered by something, understand why. Because that's the wellness part of it. Yeah. What's causing you to spend? What happened that day that you want to swipe your card? And for me, I just felt like I was trying to keep up with everybody else and what everybody else was doing, but just really trying to understand I was doing more for other people than I was for myself. And I realized like, I'm all about other people and I didn't know how to be selfish, buying rounds for everybody or, saying you want a pair of shoes, like that's not a good mentality to have. And so I had to understand why. I had to go back to childhood to really understand why I was so triggered in the way that I was. And so, I still have some financial triggers today, some things that I like, but I don't do it as often. I shop on the clearance rack, and I'm more mindful and I'll ask myself, is this going to create value?
That's important.
Those are recommendations that I would have to folks who are really struggling with swipage method.
Swipage.
Yeah, swipage.
We got a new word.
Swipe.
Right.
And again, that's where that budget comes in too, though, because if you're mindful and you do your budget, you know exactly how much money you have. If you swipe that card, it's over. And I had a lot of late fees. I mean, I closed a lot. I was on check systems. That's how bad my financial system was. No bank would give me an account. I overdrafted a lot of accounts and didn't pay them back. So I had to fight the battle of figuring out how to open up a checking account as well. So, there's a lot of harmful things that can take place if you're overdrafting and not, sticking to a budget.
Okay. So I can relate to a lot of your story, and we're friends. So I talk to you about this all the time, and you kind of help me with it. Can you talk a little bit about how you balance that? Treat yourself because you work hard, because maybe you did grow up without, and you got triggers, and you like, I just worked, I'm slaying it, I'm killing it, I got promotion, I deserve compared Jordans. That's me. So how do you balance that? Treat yourself versus building wealth.
So if you have like $15,000 in credit card debt, let's just say an example. You got credit card debt, you got some debts. I mean, there's some debts, it may take a little longer, student loans, we know it takes. You got a mortgage, right? Like that I would say that's a positive debt because you're building wealth, appreciation, depreciation with taxes. If you are $15,000 in credit card debt, don't go to Mexico. Just don't do it, because it's likely you're going to use your credit card. If you're not using cash for that trip, don't do it. And what I mean by that, if you're going to put something on your credit card, you need to be paying it off before it's actually due, right? Before it actually hits your credit, you got to pay it off. So I would say this is where the discipline comes in, right? You can take 20 trips 2 years from now if you stay in a lane that allows you to pay down and eat that debt. That interest is killing you. And so I'll show people this is what happens when you're not paying this credit card debt off. You're paying the minimum payment or a little bit over, you're going to be in debt for the next 15 years, right? Do you want to be in debt for 15 years, or you want to buy a pair of Jordans? And so for me, I'm very frugal. I own some Jordans. I do. I own quite a few Jordans. I have some Air Force Ones. So when we talk about treat yourself, you just have to be mindful and that's the C in aortic. It's okay to celebrate, but don't overdo it. Make sure it's in your budget. Make sure that you're not using your credit cards to treat yourself. And if you do, it's something that you can pay off right away. So I think in balance, don't buy 5 pair of Jordans a year. And the rule of thumb is if you can't buy 5 of them, you shouldn't purchase it anyway. You can't buy 5 of the item, then you should be purchasing. You are not wealthy enough to be purchasing that item. So think about that when you go buy a pair of Jordans that cost $200. If you can't buy 5 of them, leave them on the rack. Go invest in Nike, go invest in Jordan, buy some of his stock. Come invest in a house with me, let's make that $200 work for us instead of us working for it. So that's my recommendation to folks. The one thing I try to do is I try to be also sensitive to people's need to take care of themselves and treat themselves too. So, you can build in that allowance fund, which allows you to save for some things, even saving for a trip. As long as you're budgeting for it, it's okay, but just be mindful not to over budget things that are going to keep you in the condition that you're in. So, it's okay to treat yourself every night. Just don't over treat.
I love that.
Yeah, you got me looking around the room like, man, I might have to.
I know.
Find a receipt on that real quick.
Right?
I can't buy 5 of those.
I am known for the car sweep. Now, I car sweep everything. If I go to Target, now I know what we all have been to Target. You go to Target for one thing and you end up with 30 things in your cart. I do a car sweep. And my ex used to get really upset with me about the car sweep because before we get to the thing, I'm like, what's in this cart that I don't need? Like, I'm sure she was probably embarrassed, but I'm just saying, like, I get, buyer's remorse. There's sometimes when I buy something, take it back. I'm not going to lie. I do that all the time. And people have to remind me it's okay to take care of yourself. So I have to make sure that I'm balancing that out with my clients, that I'm not putting too much of my own personal agenda on people's ability to treat themselves. So have a treat yourself fun.
Okay. Well, I got it. Your agenda is working, so keep on keeping on. I love that you keep coming back to the wellness of it, and you're not saying wellness. You're calling out the problem. You're calling out the disease. Like, that's so important for people to recognize.
Yeah.
I had a question for you because on the entrepreneurial side of things. So, is there a certain formula that you use when you want to start up a business that you kind of follow before you even get started, so that it's something that obviously you're the type of person, whatever you're going to do, you're going to live with the results and learn and keep moving forward. But is there a kind of a formula that you use when you're starting up a business or taking any type of risk financially?
I would say the risk is in not doing. I think that success comes with knowledge, but also in the doing of something. You can't learn how to be successful unless you start a process. I've tried a lot of different businesses and many of them failed. But now I'm at a place where those businesses that I failed at brought me to where I am today. So I always tell people, don't be afraid to fail forward. And I think the recipe is surrounding yourself with mentors and people that have been there. Yeah. Some of them are around you. Some of them are my friends. So I will reach out and say, hey, like, I have this question. Can you help me? If you go look at my advisory council, I surround myself with folks that I know are more intelligent in certain areas on purpose so that I can reach out to say, hey, what are your thoughts? Think? I know this is your area expertise. And don't be afraid to take that on. Right now, I'm in 3 different mentorship programs. And it is so helpful in helping me elevate my business. But I think the other thing is you got to be willing to work, and you got to be willing to sacrifice some of the things that you're doing every single day, value and pushing you forward. And we're so distracted a lot. We're distracted by TV. We're distracted by telephones. We're distracted by the news. And so I make sure that I build in time to push my business forward. And that is putting me first. And I hadn't always done that. So I would say, the balancing out is you get that emergency fund going, and now you got a little bit more money to put up. You find programs and services that are willing to invest in your business to actually help you get to a place. And then you don't grow beyond your ability. Obviously, there's risk, right? Like you're going to be investing in things that maybe take a while to churn, but I put cash in my business, right? Like I have very little debt, so little debt that I can take my own money and pay it off. But I wouldn't get into more debt than what I could personally sustain based on my current business model. Some people will do something a little different, depending on how you're set up. So I would just say, like, just be mindful of not investing all of your personal money into something and you're not quite there yet. You're going to put your personal life in devastation. So learn how to use business credit and things like that to actually help secure and push your business forward. So in my mind, the risk is in not doing it. You might lose a little money on a few businesses, but as long as you didn't go bankrupt doing it, and even if you did that, you learned something. So I would say mistakes help us be successful.
Sticking with that entrepreneurial side of things, I've tried to, many times if I don't have a mentor, try to go and listen to books and jump on YouTube and just hear different perspectives about money and money management and investing. A term came up that, I wanted to ask you about, called good debt.
Yes.
Could you explain that to the listeners? And is there truly something called good debt?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm learning this through real estate. And, I was very sort of illiterate as it relates to like financing of real estate deals. And I'm like, if I go to the bank and I get money, like now I'm in debt. But I really started to figure out after being educated and going through a commercial real estate program that I'm using other people's money, right? And so I think about student loans, and I am not advocating for anybody to not go to college. I just want to put that out there. If mom's listening, because me and her are But think about that. And I always talk about the Kanye West song, When It All Falls Down, and he talks about, she won't drop out of college because a parent will look at her funny. Now, ain't that insecure? The concept of college seems so secure. But think about the investment.
Secure.
Like many of us,
It's a lot of bread.
It's a lot of bread. What's the value? What is the value for our community? And when does it actually pay off, right? And in my case, it didn't. And for many in our community, it doesn't pay off. So I think about the idea of good debt. And I look at real estate as a great debt because when you get into real estate, you're getting the monthly cash flow, right? From the renters paying you tax-free, right? You're getting the appreciation. If you're buying the right neighborhood, the value of your home is going to continue to go up. And when you file taxes, you're getting the depreciation back from the government. So that is a good debt. Somebody else is paying your mortgage and you're still getting money back each month if you set your deal right. So I think that there's absolutely good debt using other people's money to finance your deals. This information is out there. I'm a big fan of Bigger Pockets. Love Bigger Pockets. I love Bigger Pockets. I mean, the knowledge that gets dropped on there, just one of the best sites I've ever been on. So I'd say yes to good debt. Love that question.
Nice. So I got 2 questions now because I heard something that I don't know nothing about. Can you explain to me? I believe you said that rent money is tax-free.
Tax-free.
Break that down for me because that's brand new to me right now. I thought I knew a little something. I did not know that.
So when you invest, let's say we're going to invest in a duplex. If you invest in a duplex and you put 2 tenants in this duplex and every month they pay you rent, it's tax-free. It becomes taxable when you sell the property. The minute you sell the property, there's something called capital gains, and the IRS is going to tax you on the property at that point. So as long as you keep the property, that income that you have coming in is tax-free. So if I'm collecting $1,600 rent money and the mortgage is only $8,000, the rest is mine to pocket to do whatever I want, and I don't have to pay taxes on it. There's also something called a 1031 exchange. And I ain't gonna go into too much debt there, but if you want to avoid the tax, and this is legal, and you sell that home, you can do a 1031 exchange. It just gives you a period of time with which you have to sell that. You have to buy a new property so that you don't incur the taxes from that. But this is the wealth building strategy. And this is why I want to really get people, encourage people to really start pursuing real estate, especially if you're behind. And for me, I was behind, right? And so learning a little bit more about how to go about doing that. And so I encourage people, you're gonna get a property and you're young, stay in your parents' house for 2 years and save up that down payment. You don't need to make a lot of money. You just have to have good credit. And if you have good credit and you're young, go buy your little house and put you some roommates in there and let them pay your rent and figure out how to get that next house. And these are things that we really need to be teaching our young folks and really teaching folks that were in my position about how we can figure out how to scale. You can turn them into Airbnbs. You can just do a number of strategies. And there are so many people available right now. They just want to throw the money at you because they're getting taxed on it. So they want to throw the money towards you and you don't have to use a bank. If you have bad credit, you don't have to allow that to keep you from getting into real estate. There are things like wholesaling people can get into. And so again, I recommend a website like Bigger Pockets that'll give you those strategies and connect you to some mentors that are drop some knowledge on you.
So that's Bigger Pockets, biggerpockets.com, right?
Yeah, biggerpockets.com. Love that site. Love it. Love it.
For sure. And then my other question was just around like that student loan piece, right? Because like in my line of work, I know that Black women have the highest rate of student loans, right? We're the most educated, but as you stated earlier, one of your examples, we don't get paid the most despite that education. And then we have those loans and we the most, self-included. So I know you have been really good at getting, at paying your student loans back. So how did you start, right? How did you start that journey and really start to chip away at it? Because for me, I mean, it looks like a mountain, right? I don't know where to start. And it's like, why should I start? So what do those first steps look like?
So the debt management plan, I use something called the FAST method, right? And I teach people the fastest way to pay your debt off. And what it does is it organizes your debt based on balance and the minimum payment that you pay. And so it'll show you based on that, which debt you should start paying first, right? So let's say you have 5 debts and your student loans down here, because usually your student loan, your mortgage are like the highest debt that you have. But as you start paying off debts, you now have the minimum payment you're paying back on top of the extra money you were using. And all you're doing is you're taking all this money and you're compiling it into the next debt. And so eventually when you get to your student loan, you're now snowballing your student loan with this massive amount of money. And so that's how you're starting to pay it down. If you get back a bonus, don't spend your bonus. Take that money and pay your debt down, because I still have student loans, but my credit is like through the roof, right? I can go get whatever I want. So I don't want folks to think that having student loans is a barrier, right? But I think the other debt that I had impacted my debt to income ratio, which is what the bank looks like before they decide they're going to lend to you. So I would say, don't focus so much on the amount of debt you have. Focus on just eating it down and watching your ratio. I use Experian 3-in-1, and I constantly look at, it's like addicted right now. I just look at my score and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do to kind of move the needle. And so although I have this student loan debt, I can go get multiple mortgages, right? Because as long as you're in that good threshold and your debt to income is okay, they'll continue to lend to you based on credit score. So I would say don't look at the amount. I tell people don't focus on the amount. Focus on that one debt that's at the top of your plan. Work that down. When that's done, you take that extra money. Don't spend it because that's your wealth. Now you now have extra wealth because you paid down a debt. Celebrate a little bit. Take that and start paying down the next. And any extra money you get should go towards working down the debt plan, which I call the FAST method.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay.
CLO, did you have another question?
The only question that was coming through my mind is, we talked about you talked about earlier about not being able to even get a bank account. So if a person is in that position, what would you kind of recommend that they do to get started so that they can have some place to start putting this extra money and putting that 5% in?
So what I recommend, again, if you don't have a bank account, you can't build wealth. You have to get your money into a bank using check cards and cash cards, which a lot of our community does because we can't get access to bank accounts. The other thing is this is a little bit of bias too. And I know I want to touch on this because some banks require these minimum payments, but when you're already like making a low wage, like you're taking a big portion of my money because I don't have enough to deposit each month. And so there's some institutional issues that go on there. So I understand why some people are using the pay cards because it's just a lot easier and they're not being charged as much fees. But I'll just say, Google second chance banks in your state. These are banks that don't use check systems as a criteria for you to get a bank account. This is how I restarted my journey. While you're doing that, you also want to pull your check systems report. It's similar to the credit score. It's free. And you get access to, I think, maybe 2 or 3 a year, and go and look, see what's on there. Pay that off. That is something that you have to do if you ever want to have a relationship with a bank and get loans in the future. Figure out how to build that into your debt management plan and pay that off. But second chance banks are usually the way to go. There are a lot of local second chance banks, even right here in our backyard, but they're all over the U.S. And so they will allow you to open up an account.
Cool. So, Dopa, did you have one more question?
Yeah, I just wondered, as you're talking about these second chance banks and, not putting stuff on like cash cards that we see, how do you feel about like some of the fintechs, like the Chimes of the world, the Ally banks who don't have like a physical location? Are those okay because they operate like banks, or are those kind of more like, not to knock it, but like the rush cards that we saw, years ago?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of digital because I think that everybody's on their phone, right? Like everybody wants digital. People don't want to go into the bank anymore. Very rarely do you go into the bank. You either swipe or you're online buying from Amazon. So I love the idea of those kinds of banks that are popping up. Greenwood is another one that's popping up for the community. And so I feel like this is the new future. And again, this is what folks are asking for. This is what people want. People want convenience. And so if you're only focused on brick or mortar, then that's going to impact somebody from a bias perspective, right? Not everybody has transportation to really get to a bank. So I think about all the inequities that exist in many communities of color that create barriers for us to be successful with banking. And we all know that this impacts our ability to build wealth. We don't have a place to put our money in.
Love that. Thank you.
Cool.
I would like to add in, one last question. Well, not really a question, but I guess kind of like a statement of some sort. I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but here, that's what I'm looking for. Recommendation. That's what I'm looking for. So what is it that you would want to leave with our listeners? That, I mean, front to back, there's been so much in here to take away.
Yes.
What would be, I guess, a starting point for the listener that says, man, all this stuff sounds incredible. It's amazing. I'm motivated. And sometimes when you hear a lot of information, you get frozen in place. Like, okay, oh man, this is great, but what do I do? What would be that recommendation of their next step? If they're saying, hey, I'm motivated, I hear you, I want this, what is my next step?
I would tell folks to really figure out where your money is going. And I think that's so important. It's a first step. But, like before you even get to that place, you have to really look at your lifestyle, because that's going to really dictate the next steps that you take. But you have to take some kind of step, even if the first one's the wrong one. It doesn't matter. Take some kind of step to better your finance. We talk about a lot of stuff tonight. Just take some kind of step. Pick up a book, read a book, start on a blog. What you give energy to grows. So give energy to it. If it's important to you, then you will figure out how to immerse yourself in it. When I was coming along on the journey, I immersed myself in finance. Every single day, I loaded up on something financially related, and it started to click. So just start and take a step by immersing yourself in the knowledge. Start understanding where your money is going and figure out a resource based on where you are to move you forward. Don't think about, I got to have all this money. There are solutions to every single financial problem. You just got to figure out what that solution is and get to that source so that source can help you through. And then you can start on the next phase of building your financial walk.
I love that. Know where your money goes.
And where can I find your book?
Yeah.
Where can I find your book?
Oh man,
You better claim it. Amazon cards and never
Man, I'm gonna get that right now.
That would be that's what everybody waiting on.
I think so.
Yes, man.
So I wanted to ask you a quick question too. So your profile, she's you on Instagram at the Melanin Project 2053. It says that you're a closet comedian. What's going on?
Oh yeah.
What's going on? That's
So _Melanin Project 2053. I'm extremely funny. If you're around me too long, you'll be like, she's a little off. But I think that I try to bring that flavor into my business and my videos and some of my content, because money can be such a serious subject, but personality wise, I'm super chill, super relaxed. It's just my nature, right? To make fun of things, because I don't want to go through life being all serious about everything, right? I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And so I am definitely a comedian. You can ask Oprah about that.
Hilarious. I'm laughing every last time.
And you don't want to work with me. You don't want to be at work with me.
Oh, what's the last place we worked together? Walmart.
Walmart. No, Sawtelle.
Oh yeah, Sawtelle.
Oh, I worked there too. I remember that.
We used to have to transfer calls to each other over at Sawtelle. This is not a fun transfer. Hello, this is Opal. Hello, Opal.
No, they used to be the best. Oh, heck yeah.
Oh yeah. I love me some comedy. I'm a fan of comedy shows, comedy in general. Love to laugh and just kick back. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's hilarious. Real talk.
That's cool. Well, I guess we're gonna wrap things up. First of all, we want to say thank you, Afra, for coming on our show today. This was such a blessing, such a gift. You dropped so many jewels. I'm sure a lot of people, y'all need to rewind, do that, write that down, because she said a lot here. In a very short period of time. We have a book recommendation that we think is amazing. Earlier, Afra, you mentioned the Robert Kiyosaki Cash Flow Quadrant. That's one of them that people should pick up. Another one that Corey and I we're talking about is called The Wealth Choice: Success Secrets from Black Millionaires. That is by Dennis Kimbrough. Very excellent book. I've read it a couple of times, and it talks about a lot of things related to wealth, but mainly that mindset of what you need to have.
And we're going to make sure that this is available for everybody. So make sure to add us on your social media. We will be at have a webpage on Radio 22's webpage. That's going to be at Black Currency Podcast. We will also be on YouTube. YouTube/Radio 22 and IG at Black Currency Podcast. But where you guys need to go, and basically need to go right now, is right there. The Melanin Project 2053.com. Yeah. So hey, I ain't mad at you if we catch you on an ad later. but this is where you need to go right now.
Mhm.
And Afra, are you taking new clients right now?
I am. I'm taking new clients, but I'm encouraging people to sign up for the financial literacy course. I'm running a special, so I significantly discounted that course. It's like $67 right now, and so I encourage people to get in there. I'm always available for questions. I do free consultations all day long. So if you need a free consult, go to my website, book a time that works for you. I'm happy to talk with anybody about their financial situation and make some recommendations to them. So get your house in order, y'all. It's time.
Mm-hmm.
It's time. It's time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we wanted to end with a quote from Madam C.J. Walker. She said, "I got my start by giving myself a start."
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. That's impactful.
And that's what we heard today.
That's what we heard today, literally.
It's crazy how those line up.
Mhm.
But yes, we can't, Afra, we can't thank you enough for being a part of this and participating. And we're hoping to see more of you. And we'll talk about that, but we hope to see a whole lot more. And I think everybody else is too. So
I look
thank
forward
you.
to it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you blessed us.
And we're gonna drop a jewel on you. We're gonna give that No Limit preview. You know, where you open up the No Limit CD and it had a preview of all the other CDs dropping. We're gonna go ahead and give you that preview. We got our own Opal Elise for episode 2.
That's right.
So I cannot wait to dive into that.
Mhm.
And credit cards and predatory lending. I cannot wait for episode 2 with Opal Elise. So make sure that you check that out.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And you will hear some of the things that Afra has helped me with along the way. She helps me with this. I hear her in my head to this day. Ivy Park drop. I put a whole bunch of stuff in my cart. I was like, "Oh, you don't need no big bright blue puffer coat. That's not you." That was all I'm gonna have right there. Let it go.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Oh gosh.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you all tuning in. Check out episode 2. Make sure to hit the website. I'm going to put it up here one more time. The Melanin Project 2053.com. Thank you once again, Afra. And from myself, DLO, Opal, we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.